Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome. It is good to have you with us for the fourth and final session on this wonderful day. And of course, as is always the way, everybody, welcome. A, I've forgotten to mute YouTube, and B, there is now the biggest tractor in the world driving just straight past my window and probably all you can hear is kind of rumbling noise and things like that. It's just a sign of how industrialization damages our auditory climate as well as many other things. It's really wonderful to have you with us, as I say, for the fourth and final session of our Commonwealth Faith and Environment Day. We are recording this session. We're also going live on YouTube, and in just a second I'm going to put us live on Facebook as well once I've just done the introductions and got the show on the road. We've got five really excellent speakers today, representing three different countries and regions across Africa, and a couple of speakers who bring a slightly more global perspective, talking from the context of organizations that have a global reach. So Najat Abdullah, Rukayat Ali, again I've stumbled over it, I'm sorry, Ali Oluwafuyi, Anna Lawton, Godfred Nsia, and Dana Frances. It's wonderful to have you all with us, and we're very grateful to you for taking the time. So we're going to go with Rukayat first. Rukayat's going to deliver the first presentation, and she's an environmental and social performance consultant with more than 5 years working in public and private sectors across Nigeria. So she works in project coordination, policy development, stakeholder engagement. When she finished her Masters in Environmental Management, she started working as an environmental officer with a consultancy in Lagos, and she also volunteers with an NGO on environmental sustainability. So Rukayat Ali Oluwafuyi, it's really wonderful to have you with us today. I am so sorry I keep stumbling over your surname, and it's a great pleasure to have you. The floor is all yours. Please share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. You really tried with my name, and I'm very happy to be given the opportunity to speak about something that I'm very passionate about, which is environmental sustainability. So I will just, in order not to waste time, I'll just dig right into it. So today I'll be presenting on what faith-based organizations can do on climate change. Globally, we can see the effects of climate change. There's flooding, there's droughts, unpredictable weather patterns. It's destroying farms, and there's a lot of chaos around climate change. Now, for the purpose of today's event, we'll be looking at faith-based organizations and what they can do in promoting climate action. Now, one might ask that why are we focusing on faith-based organizations? First of all, they have a large followership and they enjoy loyalty from the elite, they enjoy loyalty from the peasants, from rural communities, and they are highly respected. They are very important in social structures. Because of the respect people have for them, they have this influence of changing behavior. When they tell people to do some things, it's difficult for people not to follow them because of the respect they have for them. So it's going to be interesting to bring this kind of people on board to join the discourse on climate change, because it's expected that with the influence they have, they'll be able to engage their followers in a way that they would see, they'll see why there's this lot of talk about climate change. Now, personally, I believe that the first step to influencing anyone to do whatever you want is to make it about them. And that's why I'll be talking about the effects that religious activities have on the environment, because it's going to be very difficult to tell people to become environmental stewards. It's going to be very difficult to tell people to plant trees, to not litter, if you can't actually tie it to certain things that they have very strong connection with, like religious activities. Now we can, especially in some, okay, I could give an example. In Nigeria, we have some religious organizations with large spaces. You know, they have like some organizations have they have their facilities on 6 plots of land, and sometimes when you get in, it's barely occupied up to half. They have their fans on, they have their lights on. Some of them have their mini dump sites, as I like to call it. They have it behind their facilities. They are not following regulations that has to do with waste management. They are not following regulations that have to do with sewage treatment and disposal. They're not following regulations that have to do with building. Some of them don't have, some of them, because they are categorized as commercial facilities when they are occupying a large number of people. Some of them don't even go through the normal process of environmental assessments before erecting their buildings. And I think in this part of the world, it's very easy, perhaps because they are religious organizations, it's very easy for them to bypass the law. It's very easy. And then in some of these rural areas where they are not even big religious organizations, some of them have their activities done in illegal structures. These are structures that are most times constructed on the flood plains, and they exacerbate the effects of flooding when it's time for the rains. Now, we can't overemphasize the impact of communal actions. Where we are today globally, as it has to do with environmental degradation, we didn't get here because of the activity of one person. We got here because of the collective activity of every one of us. We have been collectively nonchalant. A lot of times we don't care, as long as it's not close to home. We can't really relate with it. We're driving, we throw out our garbage, we dump refuse indiscriminately. Some organizations that are beside water bodies don't even bother contracting their sewage treatment to professionals. They just channel it into the water, since no one is going to be able to see them. Now, when these things come back to haunt us, as it is right now, we are all suffering collectively. Climate change has exacerbated the farmer heather crisis in Nigeria. Climate change has contributed to the increase in food prices, and this affects everyone. Climate change has contributed to flooding. Lagos, where I am, is a coastal city, and during the rains, a lot of people don't have it funny at all, because of sea level rise. Homes are flooded, buildings are flooded, infrastructural assets are destroyed. Now, education can bridge this gap, which is why we want to leverage on the convening power of the leaders of faith-based organizations. Different religions, at least the 2 major religions that we have in Nigeria here, have scriptures in their holy books that emphasize the importance of nature and the services that it renders to us. For example, in the Islamic, in Islam, all of our religious activities are tied to natural resources. Before we pray, we'll have to use water. When we don't have water, we have to use sand, and it has to be very clean. I know that in Christianity also, they have scriptures that talks about the love God has for nature and why he has made humans to be custodians of nature and all that is in it. So it is important that to restore nature, at least, not exactly to its pristine conditions, but at least to be able to live for a long time sustainably on this planet, we need to collectively see nature not as something that we want to dominate over, but as something that we are part of, something that serves us, that we want to maintain. It's just like your car. If you don't maintain your vehicle, it won't serve you for a long time. If we're benefiting, we're breathing clean air, we're drinking clean water, we're building our houses on land, and we're turning blind eye to maintaining these ecosystem services. So I go to benefits. If we collectively take it as our responsibility to become environmental stewards, we would also collectively enjoy the benefits. It's not going to be like, okay, one side is enjoying, the other is not enjoying. That is just the way nature works. It's a system. Once one part is broken down, it affects all other parts. And once one part is enjoying, once one part is getting restored, all other parts would also be positively affected. Now, it is actually, well, in Nigeria, not much has been done by faith-based organizations, but it is worthy to note that churches and Islamic leaders are rising up and taking steps to engage the government to support them in increasing the awareness and advocacy around the importance of environmental responsibility and creating resilience for climate change. There are some challenges that have been faced by faith-based organizations, because it's not like all of them are just sitting with their arms akimbo and just looking like, okay, we're waiting for the government, There are some challenges that they are faced, and these challenges, they will still face them if nothing is done. The first one is the poor knowledge on the issues on the part of religious leaders. I would say like a handful of religious leaders are not experts in any field, nor have they been able to get educated about the environment and the services it renders. So it's going to be difficult for them to talk to people when they don't even know what they want to talk about. Now, using Nigeria again, poverty prevents people from seeing beyond surviving. That's just the honest truth. How do you tell someone who can barely feed 5 children to care about the environment? They won't see any sense in what you're talking about. All they want to do is get by, get food, and that's it. We'll have people working on dump sites in Nigeria, and as toxic as as toxic as it is, it's been difficult for law enforcement to clamp down on them because they just want to survive. Lack of funds to facilitate structure and awareness programs. Yes, because a lot of religious, I can speak very well for Islamic organizations because I'm a Muslim and more inclined towards that side. They are not revenue generating organizations. And without external funding, they won't be able to run their affairs, not to talk of facilitating awareness programs for the leaders and for the congregation. Now, let's even assume that they are able to talk to people to start inculcating these small habits of using the dustbins, putting off lights, not dumping their waste in the drains. A lot of these amenities are not available. When you tell someone, okay, recycle plastic, but there's no recycler in like until the next 10 kilometers. It's going to be very difficult for people to put into practice what you teach them when the structures are not there, when the infrastructure is not there for them to be able to do these things easily. Now, what should faith-based organizations do? There's a lot they can do. But first of all, they have to learn, because you can only give what you have. You can't give what you don't have. Since since our holy books since our holy books are the points of reference when preaching to congregations, it's going to be very important to try to identify scriptural references where environmental stewardship has been discussed. This will help the congregation relate more with it, because these are books that they use as guides for their daily lives. It is also important for the religious leaders to learn about the science of environmental resources. If they themselves don't believe in the science, it's going to be very difficult to explain it passionately to the next person. They must also be aware of the environmental regulations that guide all of their activities. We have religious bodies that cause serious traffic on expressways. Traffic jam is a contributor to climate change, because we have cars running on fossil fuels, burning fossil fuel in traffic, contributing to air pollution, global warming, and at the end of the day, a changing climate. They must understand that after a certain capacity, they need to install a sewage treatment plant to manage their sewage. They must understand that before constructing certain facilities, they have to go through an environmental impact assessment, and consequently environmental audits, environmental monitoring, and all other ones that apply to their facilities. This would also help them teach and lead by example, so that in the individual lives of their followers and their individual businesses, they are able to see that, oh, my religious organization, this is what they do. I'm able, okay, it means they are doing the correct thing. Okay, it's going to make sense if I also don't flout the rules. See, they have to learn that it's not in the big things, it's in the little things, like turning off lights, using less water, because there are sometimes that when Muslims are performing ablution, they just leave the tap running. They leave the tap running. They can just use kettles. Those actions look like insignificant actions, but they go a long way when multiplied by millions of people. Using less water, using the waste bins. If we have waste bins and people are using them, we won't need anybody to be sweeping their large expanse of land. They should also learn about the projects that can be supported by development finance institutions. Now, this one, because a lot of religious organizations don't really talk about, most of them talk about heaven, talk about the afterlife, and some issues around family, but they don't really talk about the commercial side of people's lives. There's nothing wrong in them looking for projects that they as an institution or their congregation can even get involved in, that can be financed by development finance institutions, because these institutions like Islamic Development Bank, the World Bank, they are investing in projects that are adaptation driven and focused on resilience. Moving forward, they now have to teach, okay, I already mentioned that. They also have to teach tree planting, particularly in Islam. Tree planting is a charitable act. And the science has proven to us that we have to keep planting trees, because we keep cutting down trees, and trees are very instrumental to absorbing CO2, which is a very potent greenhouse gas. We need to encourage people to plant trees. Excuse me, sorry. I have a next slide. Yeah, so the last thing I would like to mention is religious leaders need to actively engage people in government to integrate policies that will make this environmental stewardship easy and appealing to citizens. People are struggling to get by, and the least of their problems is to say they want to protect the environment. That is just the sad and unfortunate truth. So we have to devise means to make it appealing to them. They can also work with businesses and other environmental organizations to increase the reach of their advocacy programs. Yeah, so these are pictures of this picture on the right is a picture of flooding that happened in Lagos, particularly Marina, about 2 weeks ago. A lot of cars were damaged because of the flood. This is drought somewhere in northern Nigeria, and this is flood somewhere, I think, in northern Nigeria too. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much indeed, Rukayat. Brilliant, and some really excellent insights there that we might want to pick up on later. I was particularly struck by the comment that you make about these things have a communal cause, and so we need to find that communal solution as well. So we'll certainly return to talking about that. Also, I'm sure we'll want to pick back up on the whole issue of how faith-based organisations can engage with the government as well. That's something for us to return to later, I'm sure. But thank you very much for a brilliant first presentation. Let me hand over to Najat Abdullah then. So Najat is the country manager for Global One in Kenya, where she oversees achievement of the organisation's vision and mission in the Horn of Africa. She's got over 10 years experience in development and humanitarian sectors, working in Ethiopia and Kenya, and works in particular for gender equality. She holds a bachelor's degree in educational planning and management from St Mary University of Ethiopia and a diploma in education from Kigumo Teachers College of Kenya. She taught in secondary school for 2 years before her NGO career, and Global One and the Cadbury Centre have done quite a bit of work together over the time, so it's very great to be able to welcome her to come and share with us now. So Najat, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much. I really appreciate, and I'm really happy and honored to be here today and speaking about environment and what we need to do. And my presentation will focus majorly on our project as Global One. What we are doing as Global One is a faith-based international organization with headquarters in UK. But then I will be speaking on what we are doing as faith-based organization here in Kenya to improve situations as there. So this is a brief introduction on the organization. It's a Muslim women led organization and established here in Kenya, especially in 2012. The organization aim is to address development and humanitarian issues, promoting community ownership through empowerment of women and disadvantaged communities. And we are proud to have majority female board members, and the organization gives platform for women leadership. So we focus on women empowerment through several thematic areas, but our major focus here in Kenya is on reproductive health and food security improvement through sustainable agriculture and wash and peace building programs. So under our food security program, we address issues of climate change and environment through, and I will specifically speak on a project that we are doing on sustainable agriculture. That is, we call it Islamic farming. And it's conservational farming and focusing on organic kind of farming. So it's kind of integrated farming. And so like we encourage communities to farm organically using organic pests, using organic manures, and like taking care of while they restore and taking care of their environment. So this program, like for example, we as Muslims, we believe we are steward appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be guardians to the world he created. It is our duty to safeguard these blessings and not to exploit. That is what we believe. From that belief, so we encourage and teach communities to farm in a friendly, environmental friendly ways. So I will speak on this project. And Global One started the concept of Islamic farming in 2010, before even establishing the organization here in Kenya, realizing the agricultural crisis in Africa demanded for a solution, which demands for solutions aligned with faith-based approach with conservational agriculture. So this Islamic farming is just a conservational agriculture, but it's speaking to people from faith-based. Speaking to people, like we believe when you are talking to people from the base approach of science, you are talking to their mind. But when you are speaking to them from the faith perspective, you are speaking to their hearts. So it's easy to convince them, it's easy to sell ideas. And so that is for those who believe. And mostly in Africa, in Kenya, almost 80–90% of people are believers and followers of a certain religion. So as Muslim women, we do not discriminate. We work with any faith. We work with any community members in our target areas. But as Muslim women, we use the Islamic faith approach when we are addressing issues in our communities. And this project, so I won't talk about this is our mission and vision. I won't take much time on this, but our core values is integrity, commitment, courage, justice, and equality. So when we say justice, we have to be just to the people and the planet. We cannot be just to ourselves as humans and be unjust to our environment, because it is our home, and anything that affects our home affects us all. So that's why we feel that, as Sister Rukia said, there is need for creating awareness. Faith leaders, especially, we work a lot with faith leaders. So when working with them, we realize that there is knowledge gap. For example, in terms of scientific knowledge, there is that big gap. So we train them using our toolkits to make them understand why the need for farming environmentally friendly way, why the need for planting trees, why there is need for taking care of our environment. And then there's the current situation. How is our climate, how is climate change affecting people? Do they even know that whatever their experiences, do they even relate it to climate change? So those are the awareness we create. So creating awareness for both those who are faith leaders or to community members or even the elite of the community on environment is very crucial for me and our organization. So that is what we do. Islamic farming, we address environmental issues under our food. I'm sorry. So I'm repeating myself, sorry about that. So we also realized that why we are using this Islamic farming to help communities farm and produce more food, because in Africa, the population is growing at very fast rate, and it's expected by 2050, the population of Africa will double. This means this continent will have young energy. The labor force will be great, but these humans need to be fed. And the environment, if we don't take care of that environment, that will feed the people, then how will they feed themselves? How will they survive? So from that point, we create awareness on this need, and we create awareness on organic farming for people to eat healthy, for people to take care of environment, and also to ensure food security. So Islamic farming aims to address the balance and encourage communities to remember that we have to get rid of poverty and hunger from Africa through sustainable agricultural practice. Faith and action go hand in hand to return the risk, that is the sustenance, to the people of Africa. So we encourage them that people should not be lazy. They should have to work hard. They have to really take care of the environment. They have to produce their food. They shouldn't be dependent on anyone, external or internal, like as long as people have the access. And so as we do work on our programs, we also advocate with governments to create access for people, to increase knowledge for people, and also we also talk about the issues that affect. We believe that Africa is not poor. Africa has resources, but mismanagement of resources are what affects people. So we do speak about these issues also with our governments, and especially local governments. So, and and then we, based on historical Islamic agricultural practice and the new understanding within conservational agriculture, Islamic farming realizes that the focus in Africa has to be on soil preparation, diversification of crops, sustainable practices such as crop rotation, equitable land use, and livestock rearing. And also we encourage the farmers to also do bee farming, that is bee harvesting of honey through and keeping of livestock in their farm, which gives them manure, and also sometimes they can use the animal waste as the pesticides that is friendly to environment. So, and while doing this, under this Islamic farming program, we have developed a toolkit called Islamic Farming Toolkit. This toolkit we developed in 2010, and it's meant to be speaking to Muslims in the language of Quran and Sunnah. This manual is a unique and is the first ever manual of promoting a faith-based approach to farming for Muslims. So we use these manuals to train communities on how to prepare their land, what to do, how to do, like when to, like for example, how to farm organic, how to practice organic farming, as well as how to take care of their environment. So we encourage, we use this toolkit to train communities. So the toolkit talks about conservational farming, and also it relates to teachings in the Quran, and it relates the science and also the faith, that is the teaching in the Quran. And Islamic farming is used to train farmers on sustainable organic farming, rehabilitation of land, restoration of right and usage. So that is what we used, and I just wanted to quote in some of the quotes we used in the toolkit. Then this is a quote from Quran. It says, "Then let mankind look at his food, how we poured down water in torrents. Then we broke open the earth, splitting it with sprout, and causing to grow within it grain and grapes and herbage. and olives and palm, and gardens of dense shrubberies and fruits and grasses as enjoyment to you and your grazing livestock. So such verses are what we use in the toolkit to speak to the faith leaders, to speak to the communities, because they believe mostly the communities we are working with in Northern Kenya are pastoralists, and we are encouraging them to, because of the recurrent drought, recurrent floodings, and climate change issues, communities are facing a lot of challenges. So, and pastoralism is facing a huge challenge because communities every year lose their livestock, and so as an alternative source of income or livelihood, we are introducing farming, and to some we are introducing organic and environmentally friendly farming. So, and yeah, so like example of another quote from Quran and Hadith. This is a Hadith. Anas reported that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu said, if a Muslim plants a tree or sows seeds, and then a bird or a person or an animal eats from it, it is regarded as a charitable gift, sadaqah, for him. Bukhari. So this is a quote from, it's a Hadith, and it is, you find it in the Islamic farming toolkit that we use to train. These are examples of the quotes you find in that toolkit. So Islamic farming wishes to remind people that every person is sent to these earth with their sustenance. Risk means sustenance is an Arabic word assigned to them at their birth, but sustenance is assigned, but God asks us to work hard and produce our food and take care of our environment. So and then there's these other quotes here, example of the quotes you find in that toolkit, which say there's no creature on earth but that upon Allah is its provision, and He knows its place of dwelling and places of storage. All is in a clear register. So sustenance is already ordained, but everybody should work hard, should take care of the environment, should take care of themselves and be dependent. Islam encourages people to be independent and take care of their environment and their. So through this project, the project has benefited over 200 farmers, 75% of them being women-headed households, and the project has benefited 2 orphanages in Garissa County. That's a boy orphanage and girls orphanage differently, and it has worked with 2 masjids and 50 farmers from western part of Kenya in called Vihiga and Kakamega counties. The beneficiaries were capacity built on organic farming, uses the Islamic farming concept, environmental care, and agro businesses, and agroforestry. We encourage agroforestry a lot. The farmers were provided with tools, organic seeds, improved irrigation system, and linked to market opportunities. So, and there is another quote, and all the farmers also, they have from the training, they also do harvest beef farming, and also keep livestock in the farm and that. So there is also another quote from Quran that says, your Lord has inspired the bee, build homes in the mountains and trees and in the hives. They build for you, then eat from all the fruits, following the design of your Lord. Precisely from their bellies come a drink of different colors, where there is a healing for the people. This should be sufficient proof for people who reflect. That is the surah called Nahl. And so this is it. And the organization creates awareness on tree planting as well as support communities to plant trees. So far, we've planted over 5,000 trees, mostly fruit trees for our target communities, mostly in northeastern part of Kenya. And we also encourage farmers to practice agroforestry. And so in conclusion, we enhance understanding on Islamic farming and conservation concept. The impact of this project is improved knowledge on land preparation, maintenance, and harvesting, improved crop production. The yield increased by almost 49%, reduced environmental degradation, improved livelihood for families of the farmers and the girls in the orphanages. So this is it from my end, and thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Najat. It's an amazing project. I've heard about it a couple of times now in different contexts, and I'm always really inspired by what you've been able to accomplish with that. So thank you so much for your great work there, and for a wonderful presentation explaining how those values are anchored in what the Quran and the Hadith teaches. So thank you so much for that. Our third speaker is Dr. Godfred Masia from the University of Ghana. He works in the Department for the Study of Religions, but he's also the resident pastor at Refined Word Chapel in Accra. And he has researched the reception of the Bible among different cultures, African biblical hermeneutics and contextual reading of the New Testament. So he's a biblical scholar, and it's my very great pleasure to hand over to Godfred now, who's going to take the next presentation for us. Thank you, Godfred.
Thank you, Andrew, for the opportunity, and good to see all of you. Let me quickly share my screen so that I can proceed. So, like my sister Rukayat set the ball rolling by indicating how relevant faith-based organizations are in responding to the problem of climate change. I will be looking at how Christians in Africa over the years have taken pains to respond to this particular problem that is facing the whole global world. To begin with, the Christian community has contributed in diverse ways in Africa in the area of education, establishing schools, universities, setting up farms, as well as medical centers where people could access medical health. They've also impacted the politics of the continent, and currently they are also responding to environmental problems. So in this presentation, I want to focus on the responses that Christian organizations in Africa has given to the problem of the environment, and specifically I'll be dwelling much on the situation in Ghana, where I reside and work. The problem today basically is that we all cannot deny the fact that environmental concerns are widely spread over, and Africa is never left out. We have problems of air, water, and noise pollution, land degradation, open air defecation, refuse management problems, and so forth. And year after year, these particular environmental disasters keep affecting the lives and properties of people over the continent. And especially in Ghana, we have perennial flooding situation where almost every year during the rainy season, flood occurs in different parts of the country. This suggests to us that the environmental problem in Africa is contextual. And I say it is contextual because the problems facing the people in Kenya may be different from what those in Accra and Burkina Faso and others are going through. But that notwithstanding, there are some common ones that runs through all countries in the continent. But this can somehow be blamed on the problem of poor socioeconomic situation. And from my research, over the years, I've realized that due to unemployment, cost of health, lack of specialization, lack of prudent management of resources in Africa compels a lot of Africans to depend directly on the environment for their livelihood. Because apart from going into the environment, there are no jobs. Even those who have completed school, graduates are complaining about job. And for that matter, those without education mostly rely on the environment for a source of living. For instance, in this picture, it's a picture I took going to my hometown in the Western region. And this is the activities of illegal gold miners who are mining along the bank of the river. As a result, the whole of the water, as you can see, has been destroyed. So due to economic problems, we are seeing massive destruction of land and water bodies. Again, the vegetation cover is being destroyed due to the activities of bushfires as well as felling down of trees. They depend on the wood for charcoal and then as fuel. And some of the women use that as a source of income because they go and sell the firewood in order to get a source of income. Currently, the problem of plastic waste and pollution is taking a toll on Africa and especially Ghana. These two pictures were taken, one from a community in Accra, showing a gutter choked with, how do you call it, rubbish. The other one is at the bank of the sea. And just permit me to share a 2-minute video of an event that a journalist recorded. All right, thank you very much for watching. This is a video that was recorded live in Accra. The Sakumono Beach is one of the popular beaches in Accra. And this was what was found out on that particular fateful day. This goes to affirm what Temple argues that by 2050, there will be more plastics in rivers and oceans than fish. Because if today in 2021, this is happening at the sea and at the shore of Ghana, then it can tell us what will happen in the near future. The world gradually is becoming ecologically bankrupt. And this therefore places a very important call on the whole human race as well as the Christian community, so that the church will see that they have as a mandate to manage and to protect the environment. This notwithstanding, we cannot say that the Christian community in Africa has not done anything, or have been silent, or have not reacted any way to some of the happenings in the environment. But basically, going through literature and then from the interviews conducted so far, I realized that the Christian community has responded in two ways. First, in theory, and second, in practice. In theory, they base more on stewardship and on eco-theology. And then in practice, they also outline some practical activities that have been embarked on by some Christian organizations. Theoretically, Africans have contributed immensely to the development of ecological theology. And from my background as an African biblical hermeneutics, there are several African scholars who have taken pain to study the Bible using the African context as a subject matter of interpretation to help African Christians appreciate the need to take care of the environment. We can mention of scholars like Justin Upon, Osun Bacha, Tuesday Adamo in Nigeria, all using the context in Africa, the ecological issues in Africa, to help them understand that there is the need for us today to rise to defend and protect the environment. Not only the scholars in the academia, but also Christian leaders are actively writing. And in their writing, they do more of advocacy and education on environment, so that, as Rukayat indicated, the influence that they will as leaders, the audience that they have will come to the realization that we all have a collective responsibility in taking care of the environment. In addition, Christian leaders are preaching and teaching ecological awareness in the churches. I have personally witnessed several churches conducting teaching services focusing on the environment. For instance, the Methodist Church of Ghana last year in their Bible study outline devoted one whole month or two or so for study on the environment, so that all members of the church will come to realize the need to take care of the environment. This goes to affirm what Justin Upon indicated, that the interpretation of the word of God is given for transformation of the human society, so that if the Christian community understand that by interpreting the word of God, understanding the word of God, it must reflect in their daily lives, taking care of the environment, making sure they avoid things that will pollute the environment, it will go in a long way to bring about the transformation that we need in the environment. In terms of prizes, the church has also formed Christian organizations and groups to respond to this challenge. And to mention only two, we have the Green Anglicans. There is an environmental network of the Anglican Church based in South Africa, and their activity is to educate Christians, educate people about how to take care of the environment. They plant trees so that it will help to reduce the problem of deforestation. The Catholic Institute of West Africa is another faith-based organization that are more into environmental awareness, and they educate people on the need to take good care of their environment. Not only that, Christian leaders take pains to attend conferences on climate change, because like Rukaya rightly indicated, that they need education. If they lack education, there is no way they can educate their followers. And so as a way of addressing the problem, they send delegates to conferences to participate in climate change conferences, acquire knowledge that they can take to their various churches and organizations to educate their members about the need to care for the environment. There are also environmental care campaigns, for instance, by the Church of Pentecost in Ghana, and their duty is to provide environmental sanitation care education. So as a church, they've devoted days and time that they go around, educate people about the need to take care of the environment, to make sure that they maintain good sanitation in their communities. They also organize clean up campaigns and exercises, so that they will not only be teaching and telling them, but they involve in the act of cleaning their communities. There are also environmental care initiatives like tree planting exercise by churches. And the Church of Pentecost have really demonstrated this. The Tema district, for instance, took time to plant trees within their area to help people know that as part of caring for the environment, they need to engage in tree planting exercise. Apart from the Church of Pentecost, other churches also do cleanup exercises, especially during festive occasions like Christmas, Easter, and then during their anniversary celebrations. Churches took time to go to places, sometimes to the beach side, to clear all the plastic waste at the beach. Also, the silt gutters filled with plastics and other things, so that they will create that awareness for members within the community to appreciate and also take steps in doing same. One thing that I found interesting was Bible class set up in some rural communities to inculcate environmental care to the children. And I had a chance of attending one in the Ashanti-Akim region, in the Ashanti region, where the children were taking through Bible lessons that teaches them the need to care for creation. And I found it very interesting, because if at that tender age, such culture is being inculcated into them and they come to understand and live with it, generations to come will come to appreciate it, and they will know how to take care of their environment. Going forward, I would say that Christians in Africa need to appreciate the fact that God demands restructuring of ecological and socio-economic life based on his plans for peace and justice. This is because when we look at the idea of stewardship and ecological theology, which is being championed by most Christian scholars, they indicate the need for the Christian to see the world as God's creation, which he has entrusted into the care of man. And by entrusting the world into our care, it means we are supposed to take care of it, protect it, keep it, and make sure that everything is intact as God created it. Therefore, if by our activities as churches, by our activities as individuals, our quest to build houses and other things leads to destruction of the environment, then there is a need for a restructuring. There is a need to have a real look at our socioeconomic life and the effect it's having on the environment from the perspective of God's own plan for peace and justice, so that in the end, we will not found guilty in the presence of God for failing to take care of the world that entrusted into our care. Again, theologically, there is the need for an ecological conversion of members. And what I mean by ecological conversion of members is that we need to let the Christian community understand that we have a responsibility towards the environment. We need to have a change of mind in the way we deal with the environment, our activities, our actions, and then the negative effects that they are having on the society. So that just as we want to convert people into Christianity for them to come and serve God, we need to also convert people to come and understand and appreciate the need to care for the environment. There should also be more training of personnel in the area of climate change, so that as they acquire more knowledge, they will be able to impart same knowledge to other people to aid the fight to reclaim the environment. Finally, the Christian community in Africa need a rediscovery of their prophetic role to the civil society. The church has a prophetic voice, and that prophetic voice is to always speak to the things that are going on within the society that is not right. So that by rediscovering this mandate God has given to us, we need to let the whole world, and for that matter, Africans, Ghanaians, wherever you are, let people know that the world is suffering, creation is suffering, the environment is being destroyed, so that by speaking, by acting, by taking practical steps to address some of these problems, you will be able to see some change in the environmental situation. In conclusion, from the research the few research I conducted, I realized that in terms of practice, the church has not done much, because compared to the theoretical propositions and the research that has been done from the academic field, you realize that there is the need for more practical steps in addressing the environmental problems within the country. Again, there should be more pragmatic approaches taken by the church in respect to the problems of the environment. Because if you leave it only at the level of advocacy, only at the level of education, telling people what they should do, without putting in place pragmatic measures, approaches that people can use to carry out such activities, it will always be left at that level. Then finally, there should be strong collaboration between the Christian academics and Christian leaders to design programs and activities that can yield positive effect on the environment. This is because there seems to be a disconnect between the academia and the society. A lot of research goes on, but the research are not being implemented locally to benefit the people living in that community. Therefore, if the Christian academics who are writing, approaching their research from the biblical perspective, African biblical hermeneutics, can partner with Christian leaders to come up with programs that can help to address some of these problems that we are faced with, it will go a long way to yield a positive result and will bring the change that we all desire. So I will end by saying that, yes, the environment is indeed being destroyed. And the distraction is by we ourselves. And for that matter, we also have as a responsibility to go back, address it, and make sure that we reclaim the environment for God. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Godfred. Really appreciate it. I really like the way you brought both the theological and the practical reflection in there, because they're both so relevant if we're going to see change in faith communities. Really appreciate your presentation. We're going to move on to Diana. Diana Francesch has a background in anthropology and philosophy, and she moved to the Netherlands to pursue master's studies in applied ethics with a specialization in nature conservation. And she's been exploring in her research human-nature relationships from normative perspectives. And now at the age of 25, she is having completed a research internship. I'm sorry, I can't speak today very well. Having completed her research internship at WWF Netherlands, she's joined the Beliefs and Values program of WWF under the leadership of Chantal Elkin, and she's responsible for helping with the coordination of the program, providing research content on the topic of faith-based approaches to conservatism. So I'm sure she's got lots of material from the 3 talks before. It's really good to hand over to her now, and Diana, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Andrew. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I hope you can see the slides, right? Okay, great. So yeah, as Andrew mentioned, I'm Diana, delighted to be here. I will be briefly talking about the work the Beliefs and Values program has been doing. Just for a brief context, I personally, as mentioned, I have a background in philosophy and ethics. So I started working with WWF in different conservation projects. So understanding how we can analyze ethical risks and implications in the different projects, understanding how we need to provide conservationists and practitioners with a set of guidelines and normative recommendations to deal with local communities, oftentimes very vulnerable communities. So I then joined the Beliefs and Values program, and I'll be briefly describing the program, what is inclusive conservation, because it's an ongoing topic within WWF's network, and a faith-based approach to conservation it falls under a wider framework of inclusive conservation. So it's interesting for me to share with you what we mean by this, and also hearing from your sides a bit on this, our main goals and strategies, some initiatives, and I'll be happy to share briefly about our latest but very important project we're developing, the Faith and Nature Hub. So what is the Beliefs in Values program? First of all, it's a WWF's program. It sits under inclusive conservation, governance practice. So it was launched under the global governance practice department in July 2019 as a sort of new network-wide platform, mainly designed to share WWF's experiences and those from other organizations, other conservation agencies on working experiences and how to work with faith groups. So the main objective of this program is to assist WWF's offices to integrate faith partnerships and approaches in their local country strategies, and to highlight the value of this approach, this faith-based approach to conservation. So WWF saw this as a really important, crucial opportunity to engage and create more innovative partnerships. And so religious stakeholders were seen here as key stakeholders, as key participants and leaders in some of our country strategies and conservation projects. And obviously, because of some of the reasons already highlighted by some of my fellow speakers here, the fact that faith communities and religious leaders have an enormous both political and economical influential power, the fact that they own vast amounts of land across the globe, the fact that they can reach out and appeal to their communities in ways that many times in many different areas of the world, governments themselves, let alone NGOs, cannot do. So it's important to mention that these partnerships between faith and conservation groups are still very novel. This is still a very novel, recent work being developed by secular conservation agencies and also by WWF. This is still quite a recent debate, but a very interesting one, and one that we're very, very excited about. And the Beliefs and Values program has mainly a twofold mission. So as I mentioned, first of all, to engage millions more people in conservation through outreach to faith groups, because as I mentioned already, faith leaders and faith communities can appeal to enormous amounts of people. And a second very important goal, to do conservation better through more inclusive approaches, to do conservation in more responsible ways. And I'll be happy to elaborate a bit more on this in a couple of minutes. So just to briefly enumerate our strategic goals until next year. First of all, we've been working really hard to integrate beliefs and values approaches into a number of WWF's country projects, local projects and strategies to create a web platform on faith and nature conservation. This will be mainly to help secular conservation organizations and practitioners, and I'll want to elaborate just a bit more on this in a second, to help faith groups become active members of the New Deal for Nature and People, to support faith groups in developing their faith environmental action plans. For those of you who aren't aware, right now hundreds of faith groups are developing environmental action plans. They're looking at how they can use their own assets, resources, and power of influence to drive practical action in light of the climate crisis. So the Beliefs and Values program, together with our very important partner, Faith Invest, we're helping to support and to orient faith groups who are interested in coming forward with their plans and to help them elaborate the nature component, the biodiversity component of these plans. And lastly, to contribute to the mainstream of inclusive conservation, obviously through this faith-based approach, which I'll also explain a bit more. So what is really inclusive conservation? Because for us, in our network, it doesn't really make sense to talk about faith-based approaches in conservation without talking about inclusive conservation. So this is become WWF's top priority. We've recognized that conservation depends heavily on the recognition of local needs, of local experiences, local epistemologies and values and rights. Also, obviously, those of indigenous peoples and other spiritual communities, and the fact that these people are the rightful custodians of many high priority areas for conservation. So we as WWF, we have a lot to learn here. We have a lot to learn from the unique set of knowledge and skills and values held by local communities, local religious communities, and how they have been integrating their own conservation methods in their own religious and cultural and spiritual traditions. So we find here very critical that these local religious communities no matter which projects we're talking about, are able to safeguard their own rights to govern and preserve their own nature, their own territories. So this is, broadly speaking, inclusive conservation for us. It's not just about supporting conservation done by these people, but also recognizing that they know best, these people, the local communities and the local faith communities, they know best how to govern their lands. They know best about their own relationship to nature and the sacred values they attach to nature, to different species, to different territories. So this framework of inclusive conservation, it's obviously a people-centered approach, and this approach is set in a justice and human rights framework. That means that it needs to work very hard to be non-discriminatory, to be culturally sensitive, and in this case, obviously, of a faith-based approach, to be faith-friendly. This movement wants to recognize, obviously, the long historical past of conservation, a historical past that has, for a really long time and in different situations, has been colonialist and exploitative. So WWF is working really hard to dismantle these structures, ingrained structures in our work, which again touches upon these new strategies, such a faith-based approach to conservation, but also in dismantling and reorganizing a lot of our own internal work mentalities and work cultures and logistics and governance methods. So lastly, this inclusive conservation framework is obviously an approach based on co-design. So the needs to co-design approaches and understand common goals, define common goals together with the local communities, understand that these local communities are not just stakeholders and are not just targets, but rather they're decision makers and protagonists of these projects. So In light of all this, of this ongoing debates on inclusive conservation, on the need to improve and update our approaches, faith-based conservation is this very interesting alternative and still non-mainstream approach to conservation that can be very fruitful. So our understanding of a faith-based approach to conservation is one that tries to look directly at this faith component and understand how local religious leaders and members of faith communities express and are able to articulate their cultural and spiritual ideals and norms around the sacred value of earth, of given species, regions, etc., and how they're committed to protect it and how they wish to protect it. So ultimately, conservation work here, based on the faiths and on the work done by faith communities, is inspired, driven, and promoted by faith communities, their values, teachings, rituals, customs, etc. So very briefly, very common examples of these, as many of you are aware, are restoring land. So for instance, tree plantation and the sacred rituals around tree plantation on deforested sites, creating sacred groves, river cleanup drives, also obviously the work done by religious leaders in terms of the sermons and teachings and sayings and their, again, influential power. Educational ongoing process within their faith communities in raising awareness and so on and so forth. So the Beliefs and Values program focusing on this approach, on connecting faith groups with WWF and different projects in which WWF is involved, has been testing several projects around the globe. We've been also very focused on developing hubs of expertise. So, as I briefly mentioned, this is also about sharing knowledge, sharing experience, allowing conservationists to discuss with one another obstacles and difficulties many times in engaging with faith communities. Ultimately, many times this requires conservationists to engage with systems of values and beliefs that are very different from theirs, and customs and ways of relating to nature. So this is why the program really tries to build a movement, not just worldwide with different faith-based organizations, but a movement within our own network for this kind of knowledge sharing. We're involved in different regions. We have for instance, very strong Buddhism-based projects in Cambodia around forest loss, illegal wildlife trade, and consumption of animal parts. So together with partners, we help putting together, for instance, conservation manuals and trainings for monks. We try to develop effective camera trapping regimes to monitor forests. In Islam, for instance, we help ignite in Islam communities, Muslim communities, in terms of work based on Muslim teachings. In Indonesia, for instance, we help ignite a widespread civil society movement to halt biodiversity loss. In terms of Hinduism in India, we've been helping reduce mass religious pilgrimage impacts on tiger reserves through faith-based programs. Obviously, within the Catholic world, we also have a strong, we try to have a strong impact. Also recently now with Laudato Si by the Pope, and how, I'm just gonna quickly interrupt my video because my camera seems to be a bit weird. Different partnerships and different projects. Another very important project that the program itself is now trying to push further is the creation of a faith and nature hub. So I briefly mentioned this would be a learning platform to help mainly conservationists, so practitioners from not just from WWF, but from different conservation agencies, on help mainstream faith-based approaches. And this will be done by mainly targeting conservation project leaders, but also faith representatives. A secondary audience will be other representatives of faith-based organizations and NGOs and donors. So we've been through, gathering of feedback on needs. We understood that conservationists mainly are seeking for basic guidance on how to work with faiths and basic orientation to inclusive conservation. We are in need of more examples and case studies coming from faith-based organizations, but other conservation practitioners around best and worst practices in faith and conservation, practical tools such as templates and guidelines and toolkits, access to publications and media, how to connect with faith groups, how conservationists can share and showcase their work to faith groups. In general, a focus on online learning, indeed, because working with faith groups requires conservationists to go through a learning process, and in general, allowing the existence of a platform for discussion around all these topics. From the faith side, we've understand that there's also need for guidance on how to engage in nature conservation projects, and including understanding priority issues and areas in terms of conservation. And the website will strive to do this in a faith-friendly way. So we'll both tailor our language and our approach to the different audiences. We want to help faith groups gain access to technical partners, to connect with others, but also to share and showcase their own work, and to have a voice for discussion around all these topics. So why—
I'm sorry to interrupt, Diana. We're more or less out of time.
Right.
So can
absolutely.
I ask you to kind of finalize? Sorry.
Absolutely, I will finalize. So I just wanted to briefly mention that indeed we've been, this is a sort of our theory of change. Indeed, we've been recognizing that there's a high level of demand and interest for faith-based organization, which is very positive, but there's still lack of centralized and organized information and knowledge centers. So this is what this website will try to do, and we're aiming for a soft launch in late September. And ultimately, this is to help create more partnerships, help initiate more projects, which will help hopefully result in more inclusivity. So in general, I just wanted to finalize by saying that this topic is, as I briefly mentioned already, is not yet totally commonplace amongst conservationists. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done by conservation agencies, but I do think that the Beliefs and Values program has helped and will continue to help foster these important debates, help to recognize and celebrate diversity and plurality of values and approaches, because ultimately WWF itself, although it is a secular organization, also works from and within their own and our own system of values and cultural traditions. So it's important to recognize that there's diversity and plurality to bring people together. And most importantly, and this is a very, very last point, the fact that the Beliefs and Values program, because it's a conservation program, has a strong focus on biodiversity, as we've seen that perhaps faith-based organizations in terms of environmental practical action have been focusing perhaps more on climate change in general and sustainable lifestyle. So here it's really a focus on biodiversity and how biodiversity values can really be linked through the teachings and influence of faith-based organizations to spiritual values. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry I ran a bit over time.
No worries. Thank you so much, Diana. It would be all too easy to underestimate how important WWF's involvement in this space is. For a major secular conservation charity to be thinking about faith engagement is really significant, and we're very grateful for you presenting that work to us so wonderfully. Our last presentation, I'm delighted to hand over now to Anna Lawton. Anna is the Campaigns and Public Affairs Officer at the Commonwealth Jewish Council, and she works with both the Jewish communities across the Commonwealth and the wider community to pursue environmental and justice campaigns in that framework. So Anna, we're very grateful to you for joining us. The floor is all yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you hear me easily? Yeah, great. In the interest of time, I'm not going to give the full presentation because I know we're running quite a lot over time. So just a bit of a whistle-stop tour, really, of our work and what we're doing at the moment. And quite a lot of the really important points that have already been brought up by previous panelists in the sense of the importance of engaging faith-based organisations across the world and how important people's faith engagement is in ways of encouraging and promoting these ideas. And often I think by the secular world, and a lot of organisations in the UK are part of this, we underestimate the importance of faith and faith communities as huge social action players across the globe. And these things really, for many people, I think, coming from a faith perspective, is actually the best way to talk to people and to encourage these activities. So thank you for so many of the previous panelists for bringing this point up. I'd like to believe that this will become more and more obvious on the world stage as we go forward. So from a Jewish perspective, the environment has always been a key thing. And when you look right back, millennia into our original tractates, our original scriptures, they're already talking about the importance of the environment. There's a passage I was looking at earlier in our Talmudic texture that said that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of our rabbis, taught a phrase that if you are holding a sapling in your hand ready to plant a tree and they come and tell you the Messiah has arisen, he advises first plant the sapling and then go out and greet him. So that's as important as the environment is, that even if you were to be told that the literal Messiah is here on earth, you plant your tree first and then you go out and say hello. So these things have always been a key importance to our tradition, as with so many other of the world's religions. With that in mind, and the Commonwealth Jewish Council, we work with communities across the Commonwealth and therefore across the globe. And of course, also pointed out by previous panelists, this has a different impact depending on where people are living and how they're feeling. So for some of our communities, they're talking about different fuels and new processes and how they can look forward into the future, driving electric cars, etc. For other people, these things are simply not what's impacting them on a day-to-day basis. They may be looking at literally at how to feed their families, where to go from there, and talking about electric cars might feel quite removed. So for us, the challenge is how we talk about these things in so many different contexts and make sure that we bring things that are relevant to all of our communities, and equally use our space on the world stage as an affiliate organisation to the Commonwealth to bring this really as a worldwide issue, because as we know, obviously it is a worldwide issue. equally, we recognise that these things in a direct way are impacting global communities in a different space. So we've got one key project at the moment called Small Islands, Big Challenges, and it's working with our communities and non-communities, as it were, across the Pacific Islands, across the small islands, talking about the fact that these people are quite literally losing their homes. Global climate change is quite literally affecting them on a day-to-day basis in a way that maybe they're not affecting people in the global West or in other parts of the world. And we look at this from a Jewish perspective. So although there are not big Jewish communities in that part of the world, we say that as a Jewish community, we know what it's like to face losing our homes. We know what it's like to feel insecure and unsure about our future in different places. And we try and use that world experience and that lived experience from our perspective to understand that climate change impact and what's going on for those small islanders across the globe, and how we can help to make sure that we're putting the correct pressure on the world stage and on our governments to really listen and step up to the mark, A, to protect their homes as they are at the moment, and B, to think about the next steps and how we will, as a global community, step up and help people when unfortunately things are happening very, very practically to their homes right here, right now. Some of us might fall into the trap sometimes of talking about this as if it's what we need to do for our grandchildren or great-grandchildren. For many people, it's very much what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. So it's about looking at both those things together. The Commonwealth Jewish Council, we have communities, like I said, across the Commonwealth. So at the moment we have a programme of climate champions. So that's people in our Jewish communities from Canada to Zimbabwe to Uganda to Australia, all over the globe, talking about the issues that impact them, but also helping each other to develop climate strategies and climate campaigns that make sense in different communities in different ways. I was going to go into detail about those, but I won't in the interest of time. But I would really encourage you to have a look at our website and see some of those campaigns that are going on at the moment, because I think they're really interesting, and hopefully they can also have a place in other communities, because although they come with Jewish scriptures in mind, they're not sort of Jewish-based campaigns necessarily. And I think that huge collective will, as we know, is basically, well, in my opinion, the only way to force government into action. So it's the only way that these small communities can come together and make governments take a step. As the Commonwealth Jewish Council, we're involved in lots of climate-based organisations and projects, but also involved in the run-up at the moment to COP26 and looking at how we can address this on a global scale. The nice thing I think about the environmental challenges, if I can use that phrase, is that it does impact us globally so clearly, no matter where we're coming from, sort of race or religion. And therefore it is a really good space for cross-religious organisations to work together and understand where our own faith-based teaching and faith-based connections can impact it, but also where we can move forward together, because fundamentally this is a challenge for us all. And I think we all recognise that. So we, as a Commonwealth Jewish Council, we have communities in the UK, but we are organised all around the world. And so we're looking as well at how our communal buildings moving forward can make sure that they are more environmentally friendly. There's an organisation here in the UK called Eco Synagogue, which looks at making sure that all buildings and organisations are looking at their environmental impact and working out ways to reduce it and make those small differences, but also the mindset differences that should hopefully become much bigger differences as we move forward. Again, in the interest of time, I'll leave you just simply with one phrase that comes from our teaching. It comes from the Talmud, and it says very clearly that even though you cannot complete the task that you are given, you are never free to desist from it. So really it means that we're not going to solve the climate change problem, or at least I'm not. I hope my fellow panelists may be able to more, but we're not free to therefore take that step back and hold our hands up. Each one of us has an absolute responsibility to do our bit. It's an honour and a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you all and see the amazing work that you're doing. And I just hope that all these faith-based organisations can come together even more and advance this response to this huge global challenge. So thank you for inviting us to be a part of this today.
Anna, thanks very much indeed for that remarkable summary of the great work that's being done. We started off this morning in the Pacific, and so to return to the small islands at the close of the day is great, really, because they are some of the areas that are most directly affected most immediately by the crisis. So thanks for all the incredible work you're doing. Thank you for kind of seeing it so clearly for us now as well. We are well and truly over time, so I'm going to ask one question to all of you and ask for a kind of one sentence response to that, please, if that's okay. So let me just simply ask you, if in one sentence you were to give some advice to a member of the faith community and to say to them, here's something you could do in practical terms which would make a difference, what would that one sentence be? What's the one thing that a faith community could do, or an individual person of faith could do, that would make a practical difference? Let me, if I may, go to Godfred first and just ask you for your one sentence response on that.
Right, thank you, Andrew. For my own one sentence answer, I would say that God is counting on every Christian to redeem the environment.
Brilliant, thank you very much indeed. Let me go to Najat then, please, and ask her, what's your one sentence?
Thank you, Andrew. I will say create awareness. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you very much indeed. Rukayat, what would your one sentence be? No, we've lost Rukayat, I think, for the moment. Diana, let me come to you then. What's your one sentence, please?
So I can say one sentence, but not on behalf of a faith community, because I'm not in the right to do so. But on the other side, from the conservationist side, I would say be informed. Be informed, because it's very normal to carry assumptions, and our assumptions may be wrong or may be right. So let's just be informed, communicate, so we can collaborate in a culturally and socially responsible way.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And let me finally come back to Anna and ask for your one sentence then.
I think it's to use the richness of our traditions and our age-old wisdoms within faith-based communities to really understand how important this earth is as a home to us all, and how to respect it and do the right thing by our world and by our brothers and sisters moving forward.
Wonderful, thank you very much indeed. Thank you so much to all our panelists this afternoon. We've really enjoyed hearing from you. Sorry to keep you moving forward at such a pace, and thank you for accommodating that. It's been a packed programme, but a really exciting programme, some remarkable work going on. So Godfred, Anna, Diana, Najat, Rukayat, thank you so much. We hugely appreciate you taking the time this afternoon. Everybody who's been watching in live, we're so grateful for your time. Everybody who's watching this later, hope you found it inspirational and enjoyable. And I think we'll probably do one of these again next year. So see you in 12 months, all being well. Thanks so much for your time, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everyone.